the empty ranch next door. The wind sang through the dying grass as the sun dipped low behind the distant ridges. The land was vast, quiet, lonely, and carved by years of drought and silence. On that endless prairie stood a man who had learned to live without company. Ethan Cole, a middle-aged rancher whose hands were rough as bark and whose eyes had grown weary of graves and sunsets. His ranch lay miles away from the nearest town, and for the longest time he had only one neighbor, Henry Dalton, a man with a big heart and a struggling farm. Henry had 7 daughters, all young, beautiful in their own simple way, and raised by a mother who'd passed long ago. Ethan often saw them laughing across the field, their giggles carried on the wind like songs from a better life. Then one harsh winter, Henry fell ill. It came sudden, like a storm that wouldn't stop. Ethan had ridden over with medicine, with prayers, even sat by the bedside when the man could no longer speak. But by dawn, Henry was gone, leaving behind nothing but his old home, a few animals and 7 daughters, the oldest barely 20, the youngest still clinging to her doll. After the funeral, the townsfolk had whispered that the girls would be sent away, to relatives, to strangers, maybe to some poorhouse in the city. But no one came, and soon, everyone forgot about the Dalton girls, except Ethan. Weeks passed. He tried not to look toward their house, tried not to listen when he heard the faint cries at night. But man alone on the frontier could not turn away forever. One evening, as the sky burned orange and red, Ethan saddled his horse and rode across the dried fields toward the Dalton farm. The place was falling apart. Fences broken, windows cracked, the barn half collapsed. Chickens pecked at dust, and the wind pushed open the old front door like a ghost. Inside, he found Anna Dalton, the eldest daughter, sweeping the wooden floor. Her hair was tied loosely, her face pale from days of worry, but there was something strong in her eyes, something that refused to give up. Behind her, the younger sisters huddled together, watching him with a mixture of fear and hope. "Mr. Cole," Anna said quietly, setting down her broom. "You didn't have to come." Ethan took off his hat. "Someone had to check if you're all right. You girls shouldn't be here alone." She smiled faintly, though it trembled at the edges. "We manage. The roof leaks, but we manage." He glanced around. The house smelled of stale bread and smoke. The youngest, Lily, was shivering though there was no wind inside. "You got enough food?" he asked. Anna hesitated. "We make do." Ethan sighed. He'd been poor once too. He knew what make do meant. It meant hunger, pride, and sleepless nights. He said, Henry was a good man. He wouldn't want his daughters starving. Her eyes softened. "I know, Mr. Cole, but we can't leave the land. It's all he left us." Ethan nodded slowly, then reached into his saddlebag. He placed a small sack of flour, a little salt, and some beans on the table. "Take it. I've got more at my place." Her lip trembled. "We can't accept charity." "It ain't charity," he said gruffly. "It's neighborly." For a moment, silence hung between them. The girls looked at one another, unsure whether to smile or cry. Then the smallest one, barefoot and thin as a reed, whispered, "Thank you, mister." He looked at her and felt something stir inside him, a feeling he hadn't known since his wife's passing. Maybe it was pity, or maybe it was something deeper, a reminder that hearts don't die even when the world around them does. Days turned into weeks. Ethan began stopping by more often, bringing milk or wood, fixing fences, checking on the livestock. He never stayed long, never crossed any lines, but each time he left, Anna would watch him ride away with something unspoken in her eyes. One morning, after a night of storm and thunder, he found the Dalton barn roof had caved in. Anna and her sisters were outside, trying to gather the animals in the mud. Without a word, Ethan jumped down from his horse and got to work. He hammered boards, tied ropes, lifted beams. By nightfall, the barn stood again, patched, but strong enough to stand another season. "You didn't have to do this," Anna said, standing beside him as the stars began to rise. "You've already done more than anyone else ever would." He shrugged. "Your father helped me once. Years ago, when my wife got sick. Brought soup every night, even when he had nothing. Guess I'm just paying back." Her eyes glistened. "I remember. Mama said you were a good man, Mr. Cole. Ethan looked away. I'm just a man trying to live. She stepped closer then, her voice soft as the evening wind. And we're just 7 girls trying to survive. The next morning, he woke to a knock on his door. When he opened it, all 7 of them stood there, Anna in front, the others behind her like a line of lost angels. Their clothes were clean but worn, their eyes uncertain but brave. Mr. Cole, Anna said, clutching her shawl, we've decided. The land's no good anymore, and we can't keep living like ghosts in that house. So we're here to ask you something. Ethan frowned. Ask me what? She took a step closer, looked straight into his tired eyes, and said softly, all 7 of us are yours, if you'll have us. For a moment, the world fell silent. The wind stopped. Even the horses in the distance seemed to listen. Ethan felt his chest tighten. He didn't know whether to speak, to step back, or to fall to his knees. All he saw were 7 faces, innocent, frightened, and yet full of trust. And deep inside, something shifted in him forever. The home that rose again. Ethan stood frozen at the door, his hat still in his hand, 7 pairs of eyes waiting for him to say something. Anything. The oldest, Anna, was trembling slightly, but didn't look away. The younger girls huddled together, clinging to one another for courage. He cleared his throat, voice low. You don't mean what I think you mean. Anna took a deep breath. We mean we can't survive alone, Mr. Cole. We don't have anyone else. Father's gone, and the town's already forgotten we exist. We're not asking for much, just a home, just someone to guide us. Ethan looked past her to the youngest, Lily, whose eyes were wide and glistening. He saw their thin hands, their worn shoes, their hope balanced on the edge of desperation. His heart felt like a weight in his chest. I ain't got much, he said after a long silence. No fine rooms, no soft beds. Anna smiled faintly. We don't need fine things. We just need a place where we belong. For a long moment, Ethan stared at the horizon beyond them. The sun was rising, soft gold spilling over the fields. Finally, he nodded once. All right, you can stay. The words fell heavy, final, but also kind. Relief washed across their faces. Lily even clapped her little hands. For the first time in years, Ethan felt something he hadn't known he missed, purpose. That morning, he set to work. The old barn became sleeping quarters for the older girls, while the younger ones took the small spare room beside his kitchen. He brought blankets from town, fixed a window, and even carved extra stools by the fire. The house that had echoed with loneliness now carried laughter and life. The girls cooked, swept, and sang. Anna took to baking bread every morning, her sleeves rolled up and flour streaking her cheeks. Ethan couldn't help but smile whenever he saw her humming softly, her voice mingling with the sound of the kettle. At first, the neighbors in town gossiped. They say old Cole's taken in all of Henry's girls. One woman whispered at the general store. 7 of them? Another scoffed. He's gone mad, or worse. Ethan heard the whispers, but he didn't care. Let them talk. He'd made a promise to a man buried under cold earth, and he'd see it through. One night, after supper, the girls sat around the fire, mending clothes. Lily leaned against Ethan's armchair, clutching her doll. Mr. Cole, she asked sleepily, are we really yours now? Ethan smiled softly. No, little one. You're your father's. I'm just keeping his promise. Anna looked up from her stitching. Father always said you were the only man he trusted, she said quietly. He'd be grateful for what you've done. Ethan stared into the flames. Your father helped me when I had no one. Guess the good comes back around if you live long enough. Months passed. The ranch began to thrive again. With 7 extra hands, the work that once broke Ethan's back now felt lighter. The girls tended the animals, planted a garden, and kept the place shining clean. Sometimes, as the sun went down, Ethan would sit on the porch and watch them laugh under the golden sky. Anna would sit beside him, her long hair catching the light. You've given them something they never had, she said once, her voice soft. A safe home. He shook his head. They gave me something I never thought I'd have again. Family. Her eyes met his, and for a heartbeat, silence said everything words couldn't. But peace on the prairie never lasted long. One afternoon, a rider from town appeared, Sheriff Dwyer, a man of stern jaw and sharper judgment. He dismounted at Ethan's gate, glancing toward the house where the girls were tending the garden. "Cole," the sheriff said, "there's talk in town. Folks don't like what they don't understand. You know how that goes." Ethan stood tall. "Ain't done anything wrong, Sheriff." "Didn't say you did," Dwyer replied, though his eyes said otherwise. "But 7 young women living under one roof with a widowed man, people twisted. You be smart to send him off to kin." Ethan's jaw tightened. "They got no kin. They stay." The sheriff tipped his hat, muttering, "Don't say I didn't warn you," before riding off in a trail of dust. Anna had heard every word. That night, when the stars came out, she found Ethan sitting alone on the porch. "You shouldn't have to fight for us," she said. Ethan looked up. "Ain't no fight I wouldn't take for what's right." Anna's eyes shimmered. "Then let me help you carry it." And from that night on, she did. By spring, the ranch had changed completely. The land was green again, the fences straight, the barns full. Townsfolk began to quiet their gossip, for results spoke louder than rumors. The Dalton girls, once orphans no one wanted, were now known as the hardest working hands in the county. One morning, Ethan found a carving knife and a plank of wood on the porch. The girls had written something across it in neat letters. "The Cole Dalton Ranch, home for 7 and 1. He stood there, reading it over and over, until his vision blurred. When he finally turned, Anna was there, smiling shyly. "We thought it was time the world knew what this place really is." Ethan nodded slowly, voice rough with feeling. "It's more than a ranch now, Anna. It's a second chance." She stepped closer, looking up at him, her eyes bright like the morning sky. "No, Mr. Cole, it's family." Years later, the prairie told a different story. Travelers passing by would see a thriving ranch, laughter spilling from its porch, children playing in the dust. They'd say the land seemed alive, as if love itself had taken root there. And sometimes, when the sun sank behind the hills, the wind would carry a whisper, soft like a memory. "All 7 of us are yours." But by then, it no longer meant ownership. It meant belonging. It meant home.